Hey guys, what's going on? It's your favorite motorsport manager, Sport the Aussie here, doing the F1 mod challenge, currently rolling up to round number 4 from a successful round number 3 where we won another race with Charles Leclerc, currently leading the championship by 4 points. And his teammate Schumacher, who only has the 2 points, crashed out in the first race, crashed out in the third race. We're hoping he's going to be able to make a little bit of a recovery here and, find his way in the championship. Right now, we've got a bit of a dilemma. We've got a political vote coming up, and it's the removal of the Sydney GP from the championship. Personally, even though I'm a Sydney side person, I'm not too worried, so I'm going to abstain my vote just so I get a +1 vote for the next vote, for the following vote, because I'd rather put my votes for something that I actually want. So how many people? Wow, there's a lot of people voting for, and there's a couple of people voting against, and it was 5-4, so it's been approved, and therefore Sydney will be removed in the next calendar year, which isn't that big of a fuss. I don't really mind that track, but we are rolling up to our next race at Tondello. We've got some server problems as well. We have some work done on the data center networking capabilities at the moment, and the technicians have found that data storage is a bit out of date. Let's have a look. Chairman happiness down by 25. I'm not too worried, he's at 100%, so there's no concerns there. The other thing is, guys, if you're loving the series thus far, be sure to give it a subscribe. Keep coming back because these videos are coming out in the daily, or at least every 2 days. And be sure to give the video a thumbs up or a like if you like the content of these videos. And now we're going to be rolling into our first race at Tondello. I also love hearing back from you guys about what I should be doing with the car, if there's any adjustments I need to be making. But let's have a bit of a cheeky look at our fitting of components. Now, for sponsors, we're going to do 5th or above because that's very likely to get that. It's also better than the 3rd or above sponsorship. It's the same dollar amount, but for the same amount of dollars. And for the part conditions, we're going to be going with Charles Leclerc. Once Charles Leclerc gets enough of a championship buffer between him and second spot, if he can do that, I'm happy to give Schumacher, we'll start to give Schumacher the better car out of the 2 drivers, but for now, we're going to give Leclerc the better components. He's just been a little bit more consistent, and he's been able to work a little bit harder when it needs, when it counts. So that's how we're going to be rolling out. And we're going to be rolling out to Tondello, Spain. One of my favorite tracks of the series, to be honest. I've been trying to dial in the last little bit of the setup to try to get my first ever 100%. I'm so close with Schumacher. Was at 99, then 99, then 98, then 99. So I've been tinkering away, and I'm hoping this might be my first ever 100% setup. Excellent, excellent, excellent. It's at 99. So that little bit of tinkering didn't bring it any step closer. And I feel like if we can just do one more lap and then bring it straight in, potentially to bring up that 18.2, which might just get us in that sweet spot. So if we send him out, he'll be able to do one more lap and come in. As for Felipe, 99% as well, so we're just on the tip of getting him in the window as well. How crazy is that? So it's literally just tinkering by those 0.1% of decimals for the wing degrees, or the angles that it's on. So quickly send him out before that time runs out. And hopefully, by the time they do this in-lap, it should be able to tell us, look, this is the setup that they were on. Yes, it was 100%. This is it, guys, the big one. But so far, so good. Everything was in level 3, soft tyres, hard tyres, qualifying trim, and race trim, which is good for us and what we want to see by the end of the session. And we're now just doing our in-laps with everyone else, setting out the last laps. And practice sessions are by no means a good comparison to go by, purely because the other cars don't go in their fastest mode. Some of them just use the harder compounds as well, but they don't push the car like we would. But I want to have a look. Did we get that elusive 100% in the setups? No, we're literally just off. So what do we go down to? Well, it didn't actually affect anything. So what did we do last time? 18.2. So we're going to try that for Schumacher. Soft tyres for qualifying. Same with this chap. We're going to go to 17.8. Now remember, both cars are not identical, so they've got different setup windows. So while they're very similar, as you can see with these diagrams, they're not exactly on point. And if you want to get both cars in their windows, you're going to have to adjust them ever so slightly. And that's dependent upon the driver and also the makeup of the car. So what are the components that make up the car for that driver? And what we're going to do here is we're going to set him out on qualifying trim. For Charles Leclerc, super overtake mode, because super overtake trumps the soft tyres 15% performance bonus that we'd be getting. And we're going to take our qualifying session. I highly recommend that you always take your qualifying session and also your what's the other one, your practice sessions, to make sure you get the most out of the cars. But for this first test, I'm going to do a bit of a back-to-back test. I'm going to go auto mode on, and I'm going to let the PC completely do that. And then when I do it in the last stint, I'm going to try to get it on manually and see if I can do it any better. So let's have a quick look to see if they can actually get it in the window. They might be able to do it. Tyre temps perfect. Tyre temps are good for Charles Leclerc. So they weren't able to do it for the brake temps, which is not surprising because generally the way to do that is you push it all the way up and then you have to bring it down ever so slightly in order to get it in the correct window. But here we go, guys. Our laps are now being done. So I just did 3 back-to-back out laps on the auto mode, and the computer went a 119, a 120.6, and a 122.2, which is not surprising because I set them out in the same tyres every time, and what that tells us is that the soft tyre compounds, well, all the tyre compounds are optimized when they've got the most amount of tread on them. So you always want to send them out in a fresh set of tyres, but I should be able to go faster than both of those times, given the fact that I'm going to be manually adjusting their little, that little spindle to keep them in the right tyre temp. So I might just send out Schumacher now. We're so close to getting the setup correct. Like, I've been adjusting it ever so slightly in order to see if I can do anything. I might try 18.1. There we go. 8 seconds is going to be the penalty in the pit lane. And I might send out Leclerc just after in order to get that cracking as well. Here's the same story where it's like, literally, let's just try 17.7 and see if we can get that going as well. New set of soft tires. Boom, out he goes. Both drivers out. Push as much as you possibly can in this out lap. A lot of the cars are already starting to go out. So, I want to make sure that we pull a bit of a gap for Schumacher anyway, and the only car behind him is actually Leclerc's car, and there's plenty of time for them to cross the finish line in order to start their last lap. But I think I've already missed the sweet spot for Schumacher, who's not going to be able to get either of those items into the... Oh, no. Even though we're on cooldown, the brake just got pumped right at the end there. So that's something to note for Charles Leclerc. So what I might do now is I might just start to pull him down for Leclerc. But we're looking perfect tyre temp, overheated brake temp. So we want to try to do the same for Leclerc, but get him perfect for both. As you can see, the brakes are still being used, even though we're on the slowdown lap, which means this is probably one of those tracks where it's pretty much impossible in order to do that with the brake temp, to get that in sync. And as you can see with that method where we go all the way up and all the way down, did not work at this particular track, given the fact that it's got a lot of little twists and turns at the end of it. But Nico Rosberg has just set the fastest first sector, followed by, is anyone else going to be able to match that? Habsburger's a little bit off the pace. Where are we at the moment? Charles Leclerc. Well, Schumacher's up at his last split time, but not faster than the leader. Nico Rosberg again sets another faster second sector. Vettel goes faster again, so Vettel's been able to push us out. Leclerc's down by 0.056 at the moment, so there's not that big of a gap between us and the lead car. 0.1 of a second, so that should be good enough to put us into second position at the meantime. Schumacher ends up qualifying in 12th, while Leclerc, with the much better car and the much better traits, given that he's got the super overtake mode, should be able to secure that second position, and he does. We're more than half a second off the actual race pace of Rosberg, and that's pretty common given the fact that we're up against the Mercedes, and sometimes, you know, you got to be real to yourself and say we're not up there yet with those guys, but we are competing with them when it comes to trading blows on the actual track itself. And one thing I'm going to do differently is that although in qualifying I gave the trait for Leclerc for super overtake mode, I'm only going to do... What am I only going to do? I'm only going to do the 15% bonuses this time around, only because we don't seem to be in super overtake mode for that long, given that we've got 0 refueling. Another interesting thing for this race is that it's going to be damp for the first couple of laps. What is everyone on? They're on intermediates, and that's the thing. We're going to be on intermediates as well, at least till about lap 9, and it looks to have dried out somewhat. So what are we going to do? I think we're going to go race trim. We're going to do pit stop legend. No, we don't want to do that. Let's go hard compound tires. How many laps is this particular track? It looks like a very 32 laps. What did the tires last set? Did we get 100% for the setup? No. 99%, and we went 0.5 faster by doing that setup and by manually adjusting it into the perfect mode. So 14 to 16 laps these tires are good for. Hards are good for 18 to 20. Softs are good for half of that, which is what is ideal for us. So I think we're going to stick with those harder compounds. the benefit of the harder compounds, I should say. As for Leclerc, did we get the 100%? No, we didn't get the 100%. It was so close. We're just so close. It's never going to be the case. Get him on, driver knowledge, race trim hard tyres, yeah. Same with him, race trim hard tyres, no super overtake mode to begin with. Driving from the get-go is going to be attack mode for both of the drivers. Rosberg, Charles Leclerc, Vettel, Habsburg, Sainz, Van Dorn. Verstappen, Ricciardo, Alonso, and Bottas rounds off your top 10. Then we've got Hulkenberg and Schumacher at the back. And the Sauber guys just behind them. So Sauber's been able to catch up on some pace while Renault's all the way at the back of the field, which is a big surprise for them. But here we go, guys. It's the start of the Tondela race. And we're up in the first position in the first corner. Leclerc makes the pass stick. It's a great start for Leclerc. And now he's able to hold that spot, and he's got a little bit of a gap already happening there. He's been able to put Rosberg in his dust, but Rosberg catches up just as quickly. And there's a lot of fiddling there between second, third, and so forth. But at the moment, everyone is actually pushing, except for a handful of cars like Vettel, who's gone back into conservative mode. But that's okay for us, because we want to push that gap as much as we possibly can. If we can lead at the start of the race, that's what we want to do. We want to get to an early lead, bridge the gap a little bit, probably change for hard tyres once we do our first pit stop, so we can push out the car as much as possibly can, then go on soft tyres to finish off the race. But at the moment, Leclerc... Oh, there's a virtual safety car. Who's it for? Is it for us? Hopefully it's not for us. It's for Ricciardo. Ricciardo's just gone off. So we want to put both cars in a backup mode, so it's not using up any of the conditions. Should I come in for a pit stop? No, you should not. If we were coming last, I'd probably say that was a good, possibly a good idea to do. But we're getting a lot more virtual safety cars rather than actual safety cars, I'm starting to notice now that we've after our first race. But as soon as those lights go out, or they're about to go out, we're going to switch back into overtake mode just to begin with. And off we go for the next start. Schumacher is already on the grind. He goes up in the 10th position. He passes Massa for that spot. So we've gained a spot by the fact that Ricciardo's gone out and Schumacher has made another pass and he's gotten by. And the reason why I can push is because about lap 8 and 9, the track starts to dry out. So these tyres, that usually last about 14 to 16 laps, can be pushed. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned about is just the park condition. But we'll have to see how that race goes. Park condition for Schumacher is a little bit weary. 48% for rear wing, 55% for brakes, everything else. Charles Leclerc has also crashed. Wow. So our race leader has just crashed out of the race, and everyone else is going to start to fold back into backup mode, and that's possibly because we were pushing a little bit too much in the rain, and that has put our race leader all the way back in the last position. So all the pressure now goes on to Schumacher, and we're going to have to monitor Schumacher and try to get him the best possible spot. So Leclerc goes out from the race lead, virtual safety car goes in, so we don't want to be pushing. We just want to be in that normal mode. I was hoping that Leclerc was going to be able to push away early enough in order to bridge a big enough gap so he can, protect his lead, not have to worry about anything. If you have to fix any of his components, we're going to fix them without losing any spots. Right now, all the focus is back on Schumacher because of the Leclerc crash. We don't seem to have much luck with our car crashes at the moment. Doesn't seem to be much going on. It seems to be everyone's just finding out their own race pace and then positioning them accordingly in this race. But I'm not too concerned about the park conditions of anything just yet. It all seems to be in the yellow/green, especially for the gearbox that's just in the green. Now we're under a little bit of pressure from Verstappen. I don't necessarily want to lose that spot, so I'm going to go back into overtake mode and try to blast him away. So Sergio Perez has also crashed. He's crashed, so that means that we cannot be overtaken, and we're going to go back into low mode, like everyone else. And, keep our park conditions up, make sure everything's alright. We don't want to go in the pits just yet, because I want to pit at the last possible moment that we can. If we can do one more lap, we could potentially come out on dry compounds and not have to do two pit stops. If I came in now, we'd be using up a little bit of our soft tyres, about 5% possibly, by doing a slow out lap, and that would cost us. But at the moment, we might just be able to get onto the back of the safety car by the time Rosberg gets around, or maybe not. Nah, at this rate, I think we will, and we'll have to pit. We will lose track position, but I'm happy to lose track position if we are going to pit for the softer compounds, and then be behind everyone when we go in the pits. So there we go, everyone's on the back of it now. We're just about to catch up ourselves. And I want to start to indicate, I'm hoping that, everyone's going to be able to bulk back up on the back of this little ridge. Can we possibly go in for our tyres now? I think we could. Although it is relatively damp, isn't it still? If we pit and do 1 lap on those bad conditions, let's do a pit stop for everything. 45 seconds. How fast is a lap around here? Probably not the gearbox. Let's not do the gearbox. Let's do everything else. Let's do a fast pit stop because he is the much better much better mechanic out of the two in terms of concentration, which is the ability to not make mistakes. So we're just outside of our target sponsorship for 5th or above, and with Leclerc out, that's going to be a little bit difficult. But in we come and out we go, and we're going to be behind that trail. So reality is, we probably could have done a pit stop for the gearbox, but it's only lost about 10%, so it's not that big of a deal. The main thing is we've been able to push. He's saying, yeah, the track's a little bit damp. We're probably going to struggle for the first lap, like big time. Until this rain starts to really drop out, we're going to struggle. But I'm happy to struggle for 1 lap if that means that everyone else is going to come in and the safety car is now starting to come into the pits. So let's see if this strategy pays off. Technically, with these tyres, we should be able to get to about lap 25 and then come in for soft tyres. So that works out pretty well for us, I believe. And will anyone else choose to come into the pits now? That's the other question. And I'm expecting to lose about 5 to 10 seconds, but given that everyone's bulked up, we shouldn't lose too much time to the guys ahead of us. So this is a huge gamble by us. I'm hoping that it pays off. The track dampness is really starting to come down into our favor. We haven't lost too much of a gap just yet. We're not even pushing the car yet. The leader might be able to get that far ahead that when they pit, they'll come out ahead. Nope, they're going to come around and do another lap. Is anyone else going to pit? No one's going to pit that lap. A couple of cars do pit. That's 13th position. Ericsson, he comes in the pit. But here comes Schumacher. Now, the track should start to go into his favor. He's already caught onto the back of the 2 Renaults at the end of the field. And we should be able to catch up to them quite easily and try to make a pass. I might just get him to go into push mode. And it's starting to be a little bit of a flurry. So let's go into high mode as well and try and get past before anyone else pits. There you go. Most of the field then goes in. So now we're up to 4th position, and that's worked out really well. So we're going to go back into push mode because I want to keep away from Habsburg as much as we possibly can. I imagine that Habsburg will be able to catch us, but now we're in 4th position. This is a spot where we can considerably, we're in a bit of a position where we can catch a podium. So that strategy has worked out well for us. We sacrificed 1 lap in order to do 2, and now Ferrari's actually going to double stack their cars. So Sainz has to double stack behind his teammate Van Dorn, and now Schumacher is surprisingly in the lead. So we've lost 1 leader, and now we've gained another leader in our trusty driver in Schumacher, who's now competing for the race win here. As long as he can try to keep out ahead. He just posted a personal 2nd best sector. I have to keep a close eye out in the park condition to make sure nothing's being worn or torn down. Nothing seems to be alerting so far. We're not even halfway into this race just yet, but Habsburg, how much faster is he? He's doing 126.6s, we're doing 126.7s. I imagine he's going to go a little bit faster in this next lap potentially. Let's have a close look at these sectors. Habsburg now posting a 2nd best sector for himself. We did a 127.1. We're 0.1 of a second slower than Habsburg, even though we're pushing a little bit more than he is, which is good news for us because that means we're probably not going to get caught. The gap is still 4 seconds. And as long as we keep this healthy gap out ahead, and the guys behind from 3rd to 5th keep battling each other, I'm expecting us to be able to draw enough of a gap where we're not going to get pulled back. So fixing the car and doing all the park conditions early on in this session and getting on the back of that train has helped us greatly. We shouldn't have to do another pit stop for park condition. Hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing happens between now and the end. I might just start to go back into neutral mode while we're starting to push around. I don't want to brush these tires as much as I possibly can because at the moment, Habsburg is 66%, we have 57%, which is going to get us into that sweet spot to be able to pit for the softer compounds, 9 to 11 laps versus, look at that. The new patch shows how long these tires should last, so about 9 more laps, which is great. We got a 15% performance bonus by using them as well. So we're now just trying to keep the tires in the correct temperature, which is not overheated but not too cool that they're in the middle. As for the fuel load, we're starting to use up a little bit more fuel than we want on board. That's okay as well, because the less fuel we have on board, the faster the car's going to go. As soon as we have enough of a bit of a healthy gap, while we have clean air, I want to keep pushing. And the reality is we're going to have to pit before everyone else, which means we're going to come out behind anyone. So if we can try to undercut possibly another driver or two and not get stuck up behind them, that's going to put us in a position where we can potentially win this race. The gap to Habsburg is now 7.6 seconds. So we're actually one of the fastest cars out on the circuit right now, doing a 127.2. And we are, yes we are, correct, we are the fastest car at the circuit, but everyone else is starting to wind down. And that's because at the start of the race, they would have kept pushing into overtake mode when we started to bleed the car a little bit better and not push it as much. And now, we're not going to start to push as much as we were. We're beyond the halfway mark. We're in a healthy little buffer zone. Toro Rosso have used team orders to allow Giovinazzi through Paul di Resta. So no surprise there, di Resta having a mechanical issue. And it'll be interesting to look at Habsburg and the rest of the guys. Do they have any mechanical issues that I should be aware about? It doesn't look so. Ericsson's in 6th position, so Asaba is in the top 10, which is a bit of a surprise, but Ericsson pitted around the same time that we pitted, or at least one lap after, and we leapfrogged him as a result, but he came out on the harder compounds one lap earlier than everyone else when they stayed on an intermediate on a dry track. So he's in 6th position. That's pretty good for him. And if he can keep the cars behind him a little bit banked up, like the, you know, the Vettels, the Verstappens, and the Sainz, we should be able to come out ahead and not be caught up behind that battle pack. Because when we pit, it's probably going to put us about lap 10, or well, place 10. So that's something a little bit concerning, but I'm just going to let Schumacher do a couple of happy laps. We're down to 31%. I don't want to keep pushing just yet. I'm happy for him to keep going. For hard compounds, you don't want to go below 20%. For soft compounds, it's 25%. Below 25%, you're really starting to slow the car down, but 20% is kind of like a healthy buffer for Schumacher. Second place, Habsburg, is starting to catch us a little bit. The gap's now 6.5 seconds. So I'm going to get him to go back into high mode. I'm not concerned about the gearbox or the engine. It's in a healthy little breathing zone at the moment. As long as we can keep pushing, what's the my tyres are wearing down whilst he's letting us know. So we'll get him to pit in the next lap. His race pace is still up. He's actually just gone faster again because we are starting to push. And I'm going to get him to push all the way into the pits for this next lap. And we will pit, and the time we are going to pit for is, of course, the softer compounds. We should be able to get 9 laps. So it'll be lap 24. That's going to be a healthy buffer for us to come in. It's going to be a fast pit stop. I don't think we should have to work on any of the components, but I don't want to work on any of the components because that will push him back down to Rosberg's level if Rosberg didn't have to pit. Funnily enough, Rosberg has actually overtaken Habsburg, and he's got a lot more tyre tread at 48%, but I believe he should have to pit at some stage. There's a mistake in pit lane that's cost him 8.9 seconds. That's not good news for us. He is going to come out in 4th position still, so he's got that little healthy of a buffer. And I'm not too... That's going to put us behind in the claws of Rosberg and Habsburg. Because we tried to push a little bit into a fast pit stop. Remember, my pit lady, Kai Gosselin, for Schumacher, gets 20 out of 20 for pit lane. Which means he's very good at doing pit stops. That might have cost us the lead, just. It will be interesting to see what the lap times are for the next couple of cars. Rosberg's doing 126.1 now. Which means he's starting to do a lot more faster times. And it says their opposition driver is Rosberg. He's going to have to pit very shortly as well. Well, I imagine he's going to have to pit unless they're going to keep pushing on those tyres. We're up into 3rd position, and we just posted the fastest lap of this race on those tyres. So as you can tell, the car is starting to come to its own. We've got no concerns with the park conditions just yet. We should be able to finish. We might get a couple of flashes by the end of this race. We are catching Van Dorn in quite a big hurry. We did a 124.4 on that last lap. Rosberg did a 125.7. We've done a 124.5. So at least 1 second faster. Paul di Resta has retired, so di Resta's out. I thought they might have pulled out a safety car, which might not have been great for us. I didn't want people to pit and come up behind us. Van Dorn is indicating that he has to pit. Where is Rosberg? Is he going to have to pit shortly? Is it 27%? He could try to push out those tyres as much as he possibly can. We're at 66% ourselves. We've gone not as fast as that last lap, but we're still doing 124s, and Rosberg's on the tip of doing 126s. So we're catching the bastard really quickly. 7.8 seconds is the gap. Now, Habsburg's just posted the fastest second sector, but he's all the way... Where is Habsburg? Habsburg's in 14th, so he must have had a mechanical issue or something that he had to repair. So that's pushed Mercedes right out of the running. And there we go. Rosberg is pitted. which means I can now go back into conserve mode. Look at all the cars that are overtaking him. Something must be wrong. There must be some sort of a mechanical issue. Van Dorn is 15 seconds behind us as well. So I'm going to completely start to go into backup mode because there's no point risking any of the components. As you can see, we're at 21% for the suspension, 25% for the front wing. Brakes looking a little bit havoc. Rear wing is also in trouble. The whole car's in trouble. The whole car is in trouble. Parlour is now retired on a mechanical issue, so a lot of people starting to retire, and I just want to conserve this car. Van Dorn is catching us. He's doing 122s versus our 125s, and we're doing a much slower lap this lap. What do? We did a 126.4. Van Dorn, now with 2 laps to go, has done a 125, so we're under no threat. I'm just worried about those park conditions. We should be able to just bring it home, but where is... Rosberg's now in 11th position, so is Habsburg, so they've completely pushed outside the top 10, and they might not even score a point. So our biggest rival right now is Ferrari. That will mean that we not only pick up the race win, but the round win for the team as well, because 2nd and 3rd position would equal 25 points, and that's not going to be the case, unless, where is their second driver signs, catches back up to everyone else. But we've just got a race win for Schumacher, which is going to put him back in the mix of the championship. 25 whopping points for our driver, and I'm rattled with that. So we've got back-to-back wins, not with the same driver, but the same team. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This has been a great win for us. Schumacher picks up the win. Choo! As long as we don't get picked up for an illegal component, fingers crossed that that's not going to be the case. Standings for the championship, Charles Leclerc is still in 1st. 8th position for Schumacher. Look at all the Germans in a row. Hulkenberg, Vettel, Schumacher. We've got Rosberg all the way up there as well. And we've got 2 Spaniards to get Alonso and Paulo. But at the moment, the team standings should all be in favour of us. We're up by 15 points in this championship. Currently doing a wheeling and dealing exercise. Risk of rule break is higher. We're going to get caught for anything? No. What? I don't even know. I don't even know how that works. But all I know is we've picked up another win. Champion should be stoked. Leclerc's not going to be as happy with that. Such is life. I'm surprised how much one season can make. You do one season of development, all of a sudden your car's into a winning stage. You stick with the 2 drivers that you came with. Schumacher goes up by quite a few points. Look at that. He's got just over that 4-star mark. He's just starting to fill up that 5th star. New personality trait, 50% morale goes up. So he's now at 100% morale. 25% happiness increase for Alonso D. Orleans Bourbon. Our team markability also goes up. The relationship with the mechanic goes down by 15%, which isn't great because that means he won't have super overtake mode next time for our qualifying. He shouldn't be pissed with the mechanic. He's the one who crashed the car, did he not? Might have been because we were pushing him a little bit, but we had to push him in hindsight. So that's been another race for us, guys. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a great race, and be sure to subscribe and also like the series, and I'll check you guys out shortly. Whoosh.